The leaked database contained the personal information of nearly 19,000 Afghans who'd worked with the British during the 20-year conflict in Afghanistan.
It also compromised the identities of 100 British nationals. And not just any Brits, we're talking spies.
A catastrophic data leak, hidden behind legal silence, has compromised our special forces, intelligence officers, and the very Afghan allies we once promised to protect. I'm Phil Campion, former UKSF, and this is the tactical truth. Now, let's have a look at what's beginning to be said by the press.
And we learned that the leaked database contained the personal information of nearly 19,000 Afghans who'd worked with the British during the 20-year conflict in Afghanistan and had applied to be resettled to the UK after the Taliban retook control in 2021. Well, the latest detail on the scale of the security breach was kept under wraps by an injunction until today, when the gagging order was lifted, in part by a High Court judge.
Okay, so these injunctions, I get why they put them in place, but unless you're gonna sweep it under the carpet forever, which is almost impossible, isn't it? You're better off coming out with the truth from the start, I think, and trying to deal with what you've actually done. Someone somewhere has made a massive boo-boo, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? Now, if you're gonna start denying everything from the off, you might even be accused of making it worse.
In a spreadsheet that was emailed outside of the government back in February 2022, the Ministry of Defence became aware of that breach later, when the excerpts of that spreadsheet were anonymously posted on Facebook, and that was in August.
On Facebook? I mean, what right has even a government document got anywhere near Facebook?
August 2023. Well, that is the backdrop to today's development. Frank Gardner, our security correspondent, is here with me. And Frank, well, another extraordinary twist here.
Yeah, I mean, if we thought it was bad enough, the revelations that have come out in the last 2 days this week, this is even, in some ways, even more shocking because, the entire kind of shtick of working for special forces or for secret intelligence is that you try to keep your identity secret. And those names, contact details, and who knows what other details were included in that unauthorized data breach that went.
Another question that no one seems to be answering here is who actually saw this once it was leaked. It's not like those targets of Corbyn, where somebody Snapchatted them and bounced them around the ether. Do you know what I mean? I never saw nothing of this coming. Did you?
Not once, but twice in February 22. Now, what happened here was that there was a Royal Marine who was seconded to Special Forces headquarters, or what's called the Directorate of Special Forces, at a base in London, in central London. He was tasked to check up on the applications being made by former members of Afghan Special Forces. To do that job, he contacted certain other members who were trusted. Unfortunately, in contacting them, he included an attachment that had all of these details. Now, we didn't know until today that, I mean, it was bad enough that there were these 18,700 names of Afghans on it, but also 100 sort of supposedly classified secret names which should never get out into the open were also included. Now,
So we can sort of like see how it happened. Where did Facebook come in?
An extraordinary leak, but an even more extraordinary reaction by the previous government. Now, this all started in February 2022. Boris Johnson was still in office when the data breach initially happened. But we're told it took 18 months for the Ministry of Defence to be made aware after some of the data appeared online and journalists started asking questions. By this time, Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister and his Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, applied for the injunction, he says, to protect those at risk from the leak.
So he's obviously bought himself some time with the injunction, but up until that point, heads just seem to have gone into the sand, didn't they?
Ben Wallace then stood down and was replaced by Grant Shapps as Defence Secretary, and in September, a High Court judge gave the government more than it had asked for by granting a super injunction, banning anyone from reporting that the court order even existed. Now, in October, the government asked for this super injunction to continue, But then in November, a different judge seemed to sound the alarm, saying the super injunction was likely to give rise to the understandable suspicion that the court processes are being used for the purposes of censorship. But he went on to approve a 4-week extension to it anyway.
I mean, there's a lot of political mumbo-jumbo in there that I frankly don't understand, like, do you know what I mean? But if you get the gist of this, which I'm starting to get now, is that basically a judge has nipped this in the bud because he deems it unfit and unsavoury for the justice system to be supporting an injunction of this nature.
The following month, ministers met to arrange a new secret resettlement route for people put at risk by the data breach. 4,500 Afghans would come to the UK this way at a cost of over £800 million to the taxpayer. The super injunction.
I wonder, where did they pay this £800 million for? Because I'd have picked the lot up for 20 and kept 10 myself, and you'd still be 50 in pocket.
Was also extended for another 2 months at this point and continued again in February 2024 until the 21st of May, when the same judge ordered it to be lifted, saying it is fundamentally objectionable for decisions that affect the lives and safety of thousands of human beings and involve the commitment of billions of pounds of public money to be taken in circumstances where they are completely insulated from public debate.
Imagine telling Parliament that no soldiers were at risk, then finding out that British spies and Special Forces identities were part of a leaked spreadsheet. This isn't a Netflix thriller. This is real, and it's unfolding right now in Westminster. Defence Secretary John Healey is under fire, not from enemies abroad, but from MPs at home. Just days ago, he stood in Parliament and confidently claimed, "No serving member of our armed forces is put at risk by the data loss."
Liar. Liar. It's incredible, isn't it? It's incredible. These people are supposed to be running the country. And they lie like a cheap Chinese watch.
But now, that statement isn't aging well. Thanks to a recently lifted court order, we now know the leak didn't just expose 19,000 Afghans. It also compromised the identities of 100 British nationals.
So there you go. When you go for these injunctions, when you try to sweep it under the carpet, when you go for a super injunction, when it all comes out, which it inevitably always does, the shit hits the fan, doesn't it?
And not just any Brits. We're talking spies, SAS operatives, and Special Forces personnel. People trained to vanish, not end up in a public spreadsheet. Sources say these elite individuals were listed because they had backed Afghan allies seeking sanctuary in the UK. That's right. In helping others, they got exposed themselves. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey is calling it what it looks like: a potential lie to Parliament. And that's not just bad politics. It's a serious breach of parliamentary rules. 3 days ago, John Healey claimed no one was at risk. Today, we find out that's likely false, he said, demanding answers. RAF veteran and Lib Dem MP Ian Room, the very man who asked Healey the question, said he was very concerned by the new revelation.
A lot of the political level stuff is just dirt slinging and they'll jump on any bandwagon, but there is a honking side to this, that people have actually been compromised. And compromised for trying to help other people out, which is not good, is it? Right, we've just seen what the press are saying. Thanks for that. But here's our summary. This wasn't a leak. This was a near total exposure of the UK's most sensitive shadow network. Nearly 19,000 names shared over email, no encryption, no clearance, just send, and off it went. Among those names, interpreters, fixers, informants, and worse, British Special Forces and MI6 personnel. The Ministry of Defence knew. They panicked. They did what cowards always do. They buried it. They used a super injunction to shut everyone up. The press, Parliament, even local councils. No one was allowed to mention it. I get it, because by not letting this go straight away, it might just limit the damage. But, as we all know, when these things don't go as to plan, the lid proper comes off, doesn't it? Meanwhile, Afghans on the list were airlifted in silence at a cost of up to $2 billion. No questions asked. Why? Because they knew admitting it would expose their incompetence. So now we ask, who's authorised that email? Who checked it? Who was in the room when it was sent? Whose grubby little hand did it? And most of all, who's paying the price? Because our covert personnel are paying it. SAS, SBS, MI6, they all rely on invisibility. Once you lose that, your career's over. Your life might be too. UKSF commanders are furious, and rightly so. Inquiry after inquiry is launching. Families are at risk. Identities have been circulating online for years, and still nothing changes. What happens next? Informant networks? Gone. Intelligent assets? Vanished. Trust in the system? You can see what that is, can't you? And here's what no one's asking. How do we interrogate the exposed? What happens when you're a covert asset who's been doxed by your own government? You lived in the shadows, served silently, and now you're on your own. No protection, no apology, just a target on your back. We need a full policy overhaul. Independent inquiry into the MOD data handling, new protection protocols for all covert operatives, immediate redress schemes for exposed personnel, and public accountability for whoever allowed this to happen. They're quick enough when they're hounding you for other stuff, aren't they? Because this isn't about paperwork. This is about lives. It's about trust. And if we lose that, we've already lost the war. We haven't even started yet. And if you want to hear the bits that we don't say openly here, the conversations we find difficult to discuss openly, join our membership for just 16 pence a day on Force TV Plus. That's right, it's on YouTube, it's all there, and it can be yours. In the meantime, go on, stick your comments below. Let's hear what you got to say about it.